أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى فلنحيينه حياة طيبة. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
If you ask any person, how long do you wish to live? You give them a choice between a short life and a long life. I don't think anyone with good reason and good logic will choose a short life. Everyone will choose the longer life. No one wants to live for a few years. Everyone wants to live for the longest amount of time possible. That is why people, when they become ill, they go to doctors. If there is an illness that stops them from continuing to live, they want to eradicate that obstacle. People will undergo procedures and surgeries at old ages. Even if a person is 90 years old, but if he needs a surgery, he might get that surgery just to live a couple of years more, although he's lived for a very long time. And so on and so forth. Human beings want to live a long life. No one wants to live a short life. Allah Azza wa Jal states in the Quran, يَوَدُّ أَحَدُهُمْ لَوْ يُعَمَّرْ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ. Some of them wish to live for 1,000 years. If they were capable of living 1,000 years, they would have lived 1,000 years. If you ask some people, are you willing to live for 1,000 years? They'll say yes. Although other family members and relatives and friends will die and perish, but they don't mind staying for another 1,000 years. قُلْ إِنَّ الْمَوْتَ الَّذِي تَفِرُّونَ مِنْهُ فَإِنَّهُ مُلَاقِيكُمْ. Say that death which you run away from will come to you. No matter where you go, death will come to us. Despite the fact that we try to run away from death. There's people that try to make themselves look young. They'll have cosmetic surgeries, skin care, and all of that to try to look young. Maybe they might fool people like me and you. A 60-year-old person might look 30 years old. But to Israel, a 60-year-old person will always remain 60-year-old. It doesn't matter. These cosmetic surgeries, whatever that we do to try to run away from death, death is after us. So a known fact is that human beings want to live a long life. No one wants to live a short life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi. However, there's a very sad reality. And that sad reality is that death will come to us, no matter what. No matter how long we live, death will come. And today, unfortunately, we're living at a day and age in which death is not only for the old. Death used to be for the old. Today, death is for the old and for the young. We're living in the age of cancer, where a person in his 20s or 30s, or maybe even younger than that, might be diagnosed with cancer. We're living in the age of car accidents. Car accidents are age blind. They don't care how old is the person sitting in the car. If there's an accident and it's deadly, that person will die despite their age. So we're living at a time in which death is age blind. Death doesn't care how old this person is. It could be someone very old, and it could be someone, or she could be someone very young as well. Although we believe in qada and qadar, although we believe in destiny and that our age of death has been destined, however, we also believe that that age can change. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He has destined for some of us to live up to 70 or 80, that can change, as we shall see. There are some factors, and the topic of tonight's lecture is how to live a long life. There are some factors that can help us live a very long age, and there are some factors that can reduce our age. We shall examine them, inshallah. We believe in qada and qadar, meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined for us to live a certain age. But does that mean that it is set in stone and that it cannot change? No, it can change. Someone could be destined to live for 60 years, but the 60 becomes 90. And on the contrary, someone could have been destined to live for 90 years, but the 90 becomes 60. That is quite possible. Why? Because we believe in two destinies. وصلوا على محمد وعلى محمد. We believe in a book called Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz, or al-Kitab. Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz or al-Kitab, it has our final destinies. What is the final year of my death, your death, all of our death? It is in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. It is set in stone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of when we will die. That is put in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz. There is another book. And when I say book, it's metaphoric. It's not necessarily, a book with cover and it has pages. No. The Quran calls it a book, as we shall see. There's another book called Kitab Kitab al-Mahwi wal-Ithbat. Al-Mahwi wal-Ithbat. What does it mean? The book that has certain things that are destined, but they could be erased. Mahu means erased. Ithbat means things that are set. That book entails, for example, our ages, but that could be changed. It is not set in stone. And we shall see how our age could change, from 60 to 90 or from 90 to 60. So there's two books, Kitab al-Lawh al-Mahfuz, or al-Kitab, and that is set in stone. Whatever goes into that book is set in stone, will no longer change. And there's another book called Kitab al-Mahwi wal-Ithbat that could change. And Allah states in the Quran, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ صلى على محمد. Some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined for them to live long lives. Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, he lived for over 1,000 years. Because the Quran tells us that he lived only with his tribe before the flood. Up till the flood, Nuh alayhi salam was 950 years old. فَلَبِثَ فِي قَوْمِهِ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا 50 عَامًا. He lived with his tribe for 1,000 years minus 50. That means 950 years. He was with his tribe up till the flood. God knows how many more years that he lived after the flood. Right? Interestingly, there's a narration that says that when the angel of death, Azrael, came to Nuh alayhi salam and he came to take away his life, he told him, Ya Nuh, you're one of the oldest living prophets. How would you describe your life in a sentence? He said, in one sentence, it's as if I was a man sitting under the shade, under a tree. I got up and I went into the sun. That quickly. How long does it take to get up from under the shade and go into the sun? 5 seconds? 10 seconds? Nuh says that I feel my life was this quick. Nuh, who lived over 1,000 years, he says this. What about me? And what about you? What should we say? So Nuh alayhi salam, he was blessed with a very long life. Among those who had a long life was Khidr. Khidr, there's a debate. Is he a prophet or is he not a prophet? Whatever he was, Prophet Khidr is still living today, and he drank from the fountain of immortality. Until today he's living, and we believe that he will reappear with our final Imam, inshallah. Among those who are living today is Prophet Isa alayhi salam. Prophet Isa has been living for over 2,000 years. Yeah, he's had a very long life. From the companions of Rasulullah, there were several that had long lives. Salman al-Farisi. Salman al-Farisi was very old when he passed away. He was over 200 years old when he passed away. Among the companions who had long lives was Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, this great man who set a great tradition, the Ziyarah of Arba'een. Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari witnessed 7 of the Ahl al-Bayt, starting from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, up till al-Imam al-Baqir. May the peace of Allah be upon him and his forefathers. Rasulullah told him that you will witness Muhammad ibn Ali, my grandchild, the 5th of the Imams. When you see him, give him my salams. And indeed, Imam al-Baqir, Jabir ibn Abdullah witnessed and Imam al-Baqir. He would sit out in the streets, he would sit out in the market, and he would shout, Ya Baqir al-Ulum, until he finally came across Imam al-Baqir. Jabir ibn Abdullah had already lost his eyesight. He's also among the ones that lived a very long life. Now, there are others that are not so lucky. There are some that were lucky enough to live a long life. There are some that were not so lucky. They lived short lives. From among our scholars, there was a scholar by the name of Sharif al-Ulama. He was a brilliant scholar, a great scholar. He lived in Karbala, approximately 300 years ago. And he was the teacher of a Sheikh Murtada al-Ansari, who was a prominent scholar, and of a Sayyid Hossein al Qazwini, one of our forefathers. He was his teacher. These were all scholars in the city of Karbala. Sharif al-Ulama was very well accomplished. He was a great scholar, and he died in his 30s, as historians say, and his biographers say. He lived a long life. Today, nowadays, we see people that live short lives. Even celebrities, even famous actors and entertainers, we see some that had very short lives, whether because they did drugs, or because of alcohol, or because of car accidents. We see that even some celebrities, they lived short lives, right? The ones that you think they have good lives, they're happy, they have wealth, they have fame, popularity, but even then, they still don't have great lives. You think that they have good lives. That is why some of them resort to taking drugs, to getting drunk, to taking alcohol. Some of them even resort to committing suicide. So don't let appearances fool you. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is having a long life, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? It depends. It depends on how you use it. And it depends on how you spend it. If you spend your long life in the service of Allah, in the obedience of Allah, then that is great. Then you should ask Allah for a longer life. If it is being spent in His service, in His obedience. But if your long life is being spent in the disobedience of Allah, the more you live, the more you disobey Him, the more you commit sins, the more you commit mistakes, then no. Then this long life becomes a burden. It's not an asset. So it all depends on how you've spent that life. How you've spent your long life. And one dua, Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam, he says a very powerful sentence. Now this sentence, it doesn't apply to him. It applies to me. And it applies to you. And it applies to sinners like us. It doesn't apply to Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam. He says, وَيْلِي كُلَّمَا طَالَ عُمْرِي كَثُرَتْ خَطَايَاي وَلَمْ أَتُوبْ. Woe unto me. The more I live, the more I perform mistakes. The more I commit mistakes. أَمَا آنَ لِي أَنْ أَسْتَحْيَ مِنْ رَبِّي. Is it not time for me to be embarrassed of my master? Is to have some shame of my master and to stop committing mistakes and sins? Now, what are some of the factors, before we talk about how to live a long life, let's talk about the factors that lead to a short life. What are the factors that lead to shortening our lives? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Well, one is an obvious reason, a biological reason, bad hygiene. It depends. Do you exercise? Do you not exercise? If you don't exercise, if you don't look out for your diet, what you eat, the type of food that you eat, the type of drinks that you drink, this all has an effect. The biological factor. Smoking is a factor. Drugs, alcohol. These are all biological factors that lead to a shorter life. Smoking is a major cause of cancer, and it's in all of our communities, right? Of course, some smokers are in denial. They say smoking does not kill. You tell them there's studies, there's statistics. They say no. Agha Khoi, he lived until he was 96, right? Sayyid al-Khoi is the smoker's best excuse. When you tell them that smoking kills, immediately they refer to Ayatollah Khoi. And every time you talk to them, they give him 2 extra years. Sometimes they say he lived 90 years. Then they say 92 years, 94 years. Every time they give him 2 more years to justify their own actions. Well, Sayyid al-Khoi must have done something that prolonged his life. Otherwise, according to science, according to statistics, smoking kills. Of course, it depends on the level of smoking, right? It depends on how much you smoke. That is why Sayyid Sistani, his fatwa on smoking is relative. He doesn't say that it's fully haram. He says that if smoking is harmful for you, then it is haram. If it is not harmful for you, it is not haram. That means there's different kinds of smokers, and it depends on how much you smoke. That all has an effect on whether it kills or it doesn't kill. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala. Another factor that leads to a shorter life is stress, overthinking, worrying. This is a psychological factor. While the first was a biological factor, this is a psychological factor. There's some people that stress over work, over their income, over their business, over their children, over their schools, tests, exams. This is not healthy. A leading factor of death is stress, because it doesn't necessarily have a direct effect on you, but stress causes heart disease, it raises your blood pressure, it can cause diabetes, it can cause biological factors that lead to death. While in Islam we are taught not to overthink, not to stress, to leave everything to Allah Azza wa Jal. Whatever it is, the most difficult tasks, the most difficult problems, leave them for Allah Azza wa Jal. Tawakkul ala Allah. وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. He who depends on Allah, then he should rely on Allah. Allah will take care of his problems. Are you in debt? Did you take out a loan that you're worried about? Do you have a child that's living in another country that's off to college? What is it that you're worried about? What is it that you're stressed over? What is it that you overthink? Calm down and relax. Stop overthinking. Overthinking is a major factor of stress that can damage your health, and it can damage the health of those around you as well. Leave it to Allah Azza wa Jal. There's a third factor. This third factor is a spiritual factor. So if you have a biological factor, a psychological factor, we have spiritual factors. One of the leading causes of death as a spiritual factor is qat' al-rahim, cutting off your ties with your family members. وَالَّذِينَ يَقْطَعُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ أَنْ يُوصَلَ. Those who cut off that which Allah has ordered us to tie, to bring closer, we cut it off. Our bonds. You see 2 brothers that don't speak to one another. 2 sisters that don't speak to one another. Cousins, family members, siblings, right? They don't speak to one another. Over what? Silly things. Over business. Over money. Over inheritance. Or land. Useless things. عظام الدنيا. The rocks of this life. I call them rocks. Not gold, not treasures, but rocks. Because at the end of the day, they're rocks. Right? We fight over dunya, we fight over this life, we fight over business. Family members, for decades, they will not speak to one another over a couple of $1,000s. Is it worth it? What leads to cutting off family ties is sooner death. It's fast death. Death will come to us a lot quickly, a lot faster. Imam al-Qazwini alayhi salam had a cousin by the name of Ali ibn Ismail. Ismail was the brother of Imam al-Sadiq. Imam al-Qazwini is the son of Imam al-Sadiq. Ali is the son of Ismail. Ali ibn Ismail was the cousin of Imam al-Qazwini. Imam al-Qazwini would do his best to have close ties with his family members. Ali ibn Ismail was jealous. Jealous. Some people, they have to deal with jealousy. Ali ibn Ismail was jealous of his cousin Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He went to Baghdad. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far knew why he went to Baghdad. Imam Musa ibn Ja'far was in Medina. He knew why Ali ibn Ismail was going to Baghdad. He wanted to go to Harun al-Rashid and tell him that Musa ibn Ja'far is doing so and so. Musa ibn Ja'far told him, don't go. If you want money, I'll give you money. If you are in debt, I will help you get out of your debt. Whatever it is, I will give you. Don't go to Baghdad. He said, no, I have to go. He went to Baghdad. He came to Harun al-Rashid. And he said, Ya Harun, there are 2 khulafa on earth. He said, 2? I am one. Who's the other? He said, my cousin, Musa ibn Ja'far. He receives money. He receives zakat and khums. I thought that khums and zakat should come to you. He said, if that's the case, then I will punish him. He gave him some money. Ali ibn Ismail came out. He felt immense pain in his stomach. He went to the restroom and he died inside the restroom. Just moments later after cutting off his ties with his family members. So many stories. So many stories. My father told me of a story of a person in Karbala, right? You would expect that someone over there knows the principles, knows the value. He had inheritance from his father. He's supposed to give to his sisters. He didn't give to his sisters. He told them that you will not receive inheritance from my father. 3 days later, he passed away. Then he died. And I'm sure all of you have stories. If you look back, maybe at family members, at friends, you can think of many stories of those who cut off their family ties and they died right away. And it's a very fast factor. It acts very fast, very fast. In a hadith, that if a person was destined to live for 30 more years, but he cut his ties off with his family members, he will live for 3 days. And if a person was destined to live for 3 days, but he connected with his family members, he will live for another 30 years. This is very real. قطع الرحم. Among the factors that lead to a shorter life is oppression. Oppression. When you oppress, there are some people that oppress nations. He's an oppressor, a tyrant. There are some people that cannot oppress a tyrant. He oppresses his neighbors by parking in front of their driveways, by playing loud music, by staying up at night and not letting them sleep. That's oppression. There are some people that don't oppress their neighbors, they oppress their family members. A husband oppresses his wife. A wife oppresses her husband. Brothers oppress one another. Sisters oppress one another. Oppression. Oppression is a factor that leads to death. Look at Yazid. Yazid, after the tragedy of Karbala, how many years did he live? Just 3 years. Only 3 years. The tragedy of Karbala, he killed the grandson of Rasulullah only to live for 3 extra years. Was it worth it for him? Look at the sultans of the Ottoman Empire. Most of them lived a short life. Read their biographies. Very few of them lived past 60 or 70. Most of them, they lived in their 30s, up till their 30s, 40s. Why? Because they are oppressed. The Ottoman Sultans, they were known for a heinous crime. They would kill their own children. They would kill their own children. Why? Just so that this child, when he grows up, he does not think of competing with his father, of taking out his father. So he kills his own children. They had a tradition that when an Ottoman, a sultan, comes to power, he has to kill his brothers. He has to kill his brothers. The day that he becomes the sultan, he has to kill his brothers. Why? So that his brothers don't compete with him. They don't think of taking him out of the palace. What happens is that he lives for a couple of years and he dies. And he is replaced with another sultan. Oppression, my dear friends, it is a factor for short lives. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. So these are factors for short lives. What about factors for a long life? We know what to abstain from. Now what should we do to gain a long life? Well, not one, again, a biological factor is exercise. There are ahadith that emphasize on exercise. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُؤْمِنُ الْقَوِيِّ. Allah loves a strong believer. Qawi here is not an adjective to the faith, but no, to the mu'min himself. Not that he has strong faith. Obviously, Allah loves a believer with strong faith. He wants them to be physically strong as well. Physically strong. Read about the prophets. They were all strong. Musa alayhi salam, he pushed someone. He gave him a small punch and he killed him. Right? We read in Surah Al-Qasas. Our prophets were strong. Our imams were all strong. Starting from Imam Ali alayhi salam to the final imam. Read about their biographies. They were all athletic. They were all strong. They were all healthy. Our imams died when they were young, not because, of health reasons, because they were all killed. مَا مِنَّا إِلَّا مَسْمُومٌ أَوْ مَقْتُولٌ. They were all killed. Otherwise, they were healthy. The imams lived healthy lives. They had knowledge of medicine. They ate proper food, they exercised, they had a healthy diet, they had a healthy hygiene. And this is a lesson for us, their followers, to also lead a healthy life. This is one. Two, one factor for a long life is knowledge. To keep this mind active, to keep the brain active. Seek knowledge. Read. Seek knowledge. Listen to a lecture. Think. To think. Keeping the brain alive and active is a source of long life. Look at our maraja. What is the median age of our maraja? Don't they all live? Many of them, they live in their 90s. 90, 91, 92, 93, 96, 97. Some of them even pass 100. Right? Most of us, we live a lot shorter than that. But the maraja, they live in their 80s, 90s, and some of them even pass the hundreds. Why? Because they go jogging every day, or they exercise. No, many of them, they don't exercise. But their brain is active. They read, they think, and that has an effect on the body. A person who has an active brain will not have a stroke, will not have, will stay away from a lot of diseases. So one factor of a long life is to think and to keep this brain active by reading, by seeking knowledge, even if you're an old person. اطلبوا العلم من المهد إلى اللحد. Seek knowledge from cradle to grave. A man came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. He said, Ya Rasulullah, if I have 1 hour remaining in my life, just 1 hour remaining, what should I do? He thought that Rasulullah was going to tell him to go seek forgiveness, pray, repent, give money to the poor. He said, no. اطلبوا العلم. Seek knowledge. He's leaving. He's departing this life. But it's not too late to seek knowledge. We're in the month of Ramadan. One of the good deeds of the month of Ramadan is to seek knowledge. In fact, Laylat al-Qadr, the night of destiny, which is a night for worship in which we recite Dua Abu Hamza, Dua Joshan al-Kabir, Ziyarah of Imam Hussein, and there's a lot of a'mal. One of the best a'mal of Laylat al-Qadr is seeking knowledge. Look at Mafatih al-Jinan by Sheikh Abbas al-Qami, a book on a'mal. He will say that on Laylat al-Qadr, one of the best deeds is seeking knowledge. Keeping this brain alive, keeping it active, is a factor for long life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alihi. 3, Salat al-Rahim. If cutting your ties off is a factor for a short life, connecting with your family members is a source of a long life. I know so many stories. I've witnessed with my own eyes, and I'm sure all of you have witnessed, of how connecting with your family members can lead to a long life. I know a person who's lived a long life, despite that he's been through many surgeries, and his health is not that great, but because he's connected with his family members. He has family members that are not so well off. He helps them, he supports them, he calls them, he asks about them. Allah has given them a long life. You know, today, you have no excuse not to connect with family members. 50 years ago, yes, maybe we couldn't connect with our family members overseas. Today, with social media, with WhatsApp, with Viber, with all of this, you know, with new technology, it's so easy, it's cheap, it's fast, it doesn't cost much. Connect with your family members, send a message, send a salam once in a while. Be in the habit, once a month, dedicate one day out of the month to connect with your relatives, immediate family members, and the distant family members. The ones that live in Kenya, the ones that live in Dar es Salaam, and Lebanon, and Iraq, and Iran, all across Europe, all across the United States. Send a salam. Send a voice message. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost time. You're in the car, just make sure that a police officer is not watching, and make a phone call to family members. This is the month of Ramadan. Wish them a happy month of Ramadan. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept their a'mal. Ask them to pray for you. This is Salat al-Rahim. Today it's very easy. It doesn't cost anything. And you will see the effect. Allah will prolong your life. If you were destined to live for 10 days, the 10 days become 10 years. If you were destined to live for 3 days, the 3 days become 30 years. It doesn't cost anything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us these easy ways of living a long life. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Another factor is good deeds. Do good to people. Fix people's problems. Help them in any way you can. If there's people in your community that don't speak English, they need help in filing applications, in finding a place to rent, in finding a place to live, help your community members. Al-birr. Al-birr is doing good deeds. It's a factor for a long life. Sadaqah, we talked about this yesterday. Paying sadaqah. It's a factor to live a long life. If you were destined to get in a car accident, to die in an evil way, in a bad way, when you pay sadaqah, Allah repels that evil. Allah repels that tragedy. It will be a way for you to live a long life. We talked about this, in detail yesterday. Be in the habit of giving sadaqah every day, even if it's a small amount. Right? A part of sadaqah is to give food. Giving food, at'am al-ta'am, cooking food for believers, even non-believers. For the poor, even non-poor. Giving food out, distributing food is a factor for long lives. Pharaoh, the Pharaoh at the time of Musa, he would slaughter 1,000 either camels or sheep every day, and he would feed people. Of course, he didn't do it for the sake of Allah. He did it out of generosity. Fir'aun was Fir'aun, but he had some good qualities. One of his good qualities was generosity. He would feed. Some people, they came and told him, 1,000 is too much. It's costing us. Let's reduce it. He said, no, I will not stop all at once. I will reduce it step by step. Every day, reduce one. So tomorrow, slaughter 999. The day after that, slaughter 998, and so on and so forth, so that we gradually stop. The day that he stopped was the day that he drowned. Scholars say that the day of Fir'aun drowned in the Red Sea was the day that he stopped slaughtering, was the day that he stopped feeding. Imagine, even Fir'aun, Allah had kept him alive because of doing good deeds, because of feeding, because of giving sadaqah. That is a factor. And of course, one of the strongest factors of having a good life, a long life, is serving our parents. Serving your parents. Whether they're old, whether they're not old, whether they're sick or not sick, being at their service. Helping them, supporting them, attending to them. Even if you don't do anything except you sit with them. You just sit and you speak to them. You know how much this means to parents? Even if you don't do anything for them, you don't serve them, you don't give them their medications, you don't wash them, you don't do anything for them. You just sit and you talk with them. This means so much in the eyes of Allah. But unfortunately, we human beings, we forget our parents. We only worry about our children, and we forget our parents. And what happens is that our children will also forget us, and they will be busy with their children. And this is how life works, unfortunately. We human beings, we forget about our parents. And the many years that our parents went to so much work to raise us, to care for us, to teach us about Islam and the school of thought of Ahl Bayt, we abandon them and we worry only about our children. But guess what? Tomorrow our children will do the exact same thing to us. So caring for our parents is a factor for a long age. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. In the month of Ramadan, as I conclude, in the month of Ramadan, there is a dua for a long age. I'm going to recite it in the end. The dua that I recite every night at the end of the lecture. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم. Oh Allah, I ask you to make among the things that you destine in Kitab, من الأمر المحتوم, not in the first book, the one that you might erase. No, in the second book, where it is destined. What? أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام, to grant me your Hajj, and then وأسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية. Oh Allah, I ask you to grant me a long life with health, in peace, and in health. وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك, and put me among those that will support your faith and religion. I don't want to be someone who is lazy, but rather someone who supports your faith, who works for Islam, who works for the school of thought of Ahl Bayt. This is one of the du'as of the month of Ramadan that should be recited every night after du'a al-iftitah. And finally, my dear brothers and sisters, living a long life is good. But what's more important is living a long life in the service of Allah. Living a good life, a long life, is something good as long as it's spent for Allah. But if it's spent for shaitan, then no. Then it's better that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away our life. Living 30 years for Allah is better than living 60 years for shaitan. So the important question is, the important thing is that we live our lives for Allah. And that we should be ready. We should not ask, my dear friends, how long we will live. The question that we should ask is, are we ready at the time of death? There are many people that live very long lives, but when death comes, they're not ready. They have not done enough a'mal. They have not done enough good deeds. Have we done enough good deeds? If we have done enough good deeds, it doesn't matter how long we live. Do we live 60 years or 90 years? If we are ready to go, if we are ready to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with enough good deeds, it doesn't matter how many years we live, because we're ready. But if we are not ready, then a long life is only a burden. It's not an asset. It becomes a liability. Imam Ali alayhi salam used to say, "Wallah inna ibn Abi Talib la yubali, awaqa'a ala al-maut, aw waqa'a al-maut alayh." Ibn Abi Talib does not care. Does he go towards death or death comes to him? Because Ali ibn Abi Talib was ready for death. Are we ready for death? That is the question. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم بالأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية وتوسع في رزقي وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والعلماء والشهداء. نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.